Hey everybody, welcome to the first time I stole, hijacked, whatever you want to call it, my dad's podcast. This is going to be awesome because he has no idea what we're going to talk about. I know y'all know he's a history teacher because everybody knows, and you know he likes his Scottish heritage and he likes wearing kilts, and my dad's a boomer. Everybody knows my dad's a boomer. But what I bet you don't know about my dad is that he's actually a tech nerd. No, he's a tech super nerd. We were the first family to have a computer in the neighborhood. He always has like the best new TV. He gets a lot of new computers, and his home is all hooked up to Alexa. So he actually has an Oculus Quest 2, and I have one now too because he let me try it. So today we're going to talk about the Oculus Quest 2 and virtual reality. So, why did you want an Oculus?
Well, like you said, I like to have the latest things out there, and it would just look like a lot of fun. It turned out it's a lot more work than I thought it would be. The other thing is, I'm not good with vertigo, so you have to be really, really careful. I have this one thing called warplanes, and if I start going too fast down, I generally crash into something. I've crashed into many a zeppelin. It's a very, very interesting thing. You know,
Did
and the way we're going, I'm going to backpedal a little bit to what she said. Yes, let me tell you a little bit about that background. Way back when I started in Oswego, I got a computer. That computer was from Sears. It did not even have a memory in it. Everything was done over a 5 and a quarter floppy disk. And now I'm in Oculus. I also did an embarrassment to Kathy, my wife. When we moved here, I bought a 75-inch screen television, and she wasn't really thrilled about that. So yeah, I go all the way. Now the Oculus is kind of a funny thing because there's so much out there. You can go into chat rooms, but they're not regular chat rooms, and you got these really big weird things. Like this one person that comes into this one room, and they're like a page from a book, and they're like the equivalent 12 feet high. Mind you, that when you get into this, the screen surrounds you 100% up, down, all around. And on that too, that you can talk to each other on this. You can move in weird ways, and it's just a strange, strange sensation on it. It's fun though. I mean, don't get me fun. Although lately I haven't had the chance to do it because I've done a million and other things I'm working on.
so
Uh,
did you just want to
no,
get a virtual reality system or did you like the Oculus in particular? Like did you research other things out
no.
there?
Well, a little bit, but Oculus seemed to be. Um, yeah, I do research. That's another thing with tech or with almost anything. I do my research and I look at it. If it's less than 4 stars, I don't buy it. If it's less than a four, 90% generally support all over. I don't normally buy it, but the Oculus Quest 2, which this is, was very, very well rated by everybody they said it. And it's kind of a fun situation to go with. And you just enjoy, weird stuff on it.
Like when I looked it up, like I looked it up when we were still visiting you and I noticed that they had like the 128 and the 256 and the price difference is like $100 and everything I read said not to bother getting the larger one unless you were planning to download a crap ton of games. So I went with the 128 that was 299.
Yeah, that's what I've got. And then I went to Amazon and got a special case, not the regular Oculus case, because it was like half the price of it.
Yeah, I did the same. I got one different than yours, but I didn't want to mess around with it. I didn't buy any accessories yet either. Do you have any accessories?
No, no accessories yet. I bought one thing, maybe two things. Everything else is free. At this point, I don't know what I'm going to buy on there. I'm trying to look some more things over, but I just haven't had the time of doing it and all kinds of things.
So what
They
was
have a
the
thing.
first I was gonna
First
say what
thing,
was the first game that you downloaded?
probably that warplanes.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
pretty
thought I
fun.
I just thought that'd be interesting, but then I found it's a heck of a lot harder than you think. Although I put our grandson on and he was already shooting up things on it a lot better than I could and controlling it. It was fun watching somebody else play with that Oculus and actually moving around and enjoying the joystick. It's like, okay, yes, it's nice to be
Yeah.
young.
Yeah, but like he's grown up with first person shooter games, so it's probably not a whole lot different for him. You know, it's just getting used to the virtual reality. Like you said, there's there's a couple games that I've checked out where you can look down and you feel like you're on a ledge or something. And like I have a snowboarding game that I've only tried it once because I almost fell because you're even though you're just standing there moving from side to side, you really feel like you're
Hmm.
snowboarding and you're gonna fall.
Yeah, the first day I had it, I was doing Wander, I think, which is a very interesting one to download because you go anywhere else in the world and do it. And I actually had to go down on my knees and sit down because it was just, and I've done that twice. I had to do that. So the point is now I do most of my stuff sitting down. Occasionally I'll stand and do something, but for the most part, it's sit down for me still because sit down works perfect with the warplanes because you're already there
Mhm.
maneuvering and everything. You're in a seated position. Some of the other things I got made fun of in this VR chat because I would sit down. Everybody else is standing and doing things.
So in the
And
chat they can see you sitting down?
I guess so.
I haven't done a lot of the chat. I did notice that it like I think is it called Horizons where they have like shows and sporting events that you can watch.
Yeah. And the other thing that you have to realize, I think our 75-inch television is really neat. But the screen on some of these things is it's the equivalent of 108 inches. Now that's one heck of a big screen. I watched some of African Queen on it because you can go to this other place where they have shows and you go into Prime Video and all that, and you can get the stuff and actually put it right on there. You can do Facebook on it. You can do anything. That Horizon is a very complicated one because there's all kinds of things you can do with the tutorial. It took me half an hour.
Right. I
To
did,
grab
you
it.
know, when I tried it out at your house, you had me in that first steps and it was like putting a cartridge in the game system within the virtual reality and I did it one and I don't know if you did it where it's like the the icon or whatever that thing is, the mascot for it. I was dancing with him. Like I was spinning him all over the place and throwing him around. It was really fun and like fireworks are going off around me and it feels so real.
It does. I mean, you get right down into that. And there's one that has a shooting game to go with it, and one the simple beginner one. It's interesting. Virtual reality is an up and coming thing. Whether it amounts to what Meta, so called, is, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go in the long run. But right now, it seems to be very, very interesting. I think in the long run, once they learn to be able to put legs in on everyone in meetings and
Yeah.
things, it'll probably be a little bit better too because you get into there.
So
It, it,
I'll say we've all tried it here, and one of the things that we all have played and we all love is there's a game called Walkabout Mini Golf, and you really feel like you're playing mini golf. Like, yeah, you have to pull the trigger to go from hole to hole, but it feels like the amount of like movement and muscle you're putting towards the ball is that's how far it goes. You know, if you hit it really hard, it flies away from you, and that it really feels like you're playing mini golf.
hmm, I
And
should
so
try it.
we've been doing that every night lately. And I have another one that's like 2 minute drill. It's virtual reality football, and that's a blast. But it was really hard at first to figure out what to do. Like I did the tutorial and I'm like, why do I keep dropping the ball? Like I couldn't figure out what to do, but it feels like you're throwing a football. It feels like you're really playing.
Yeah, I got a fishing game called Bait, and I learned very quickly how to cast it. And they showed this thing about reeling it in, and I had no idea what they meant. Then all of a sudden I realized, okay, I got to grab it like it's a handle, like you really are fishing in it, and then it works fine. But it's kind of fascinating too. It's a very simplistic, but it's fascinating at the same time because you actually pick the thing up, you actually cast it just like you're really casting something. Really, and you got to do fight the fish. You literally have to fight the fish because it takes off, and it's kind of interesting as well. It's just there's so much out there. I look at all
Yeah.
those ones and I think, what's going to give me vertigo? What's not going to give me vertigo?
I don't recommend the Epic Roller Coaster game. I tried that and I did it standing and I had to sit down. And like when you first start, it like puts this helmet on you with these shields so you can only look forward. And I was like, I don't need that. And I took them off. And then I had to sit down and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna play that without shields again or standing because that was really hard.
Yeah, and you tolerate a lot more than I do.
It was just like with a real roller coaster, you sort of have you have the safety stuff to keep your head where it's supposed to be, and you can't be looking around on a roller coaster. You have to be looking where you're headed, but the way that it plays, it can't stay ahead enough. So you're just for me, I am also prone to motion sickness, but not generally on roller coasters, but I can't use the same vantage point that I do on a regular roller coaster in virtual reality. So that made me motion sick.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are like three things in my lifetime that have given me really bad vertigo, and she was part of one of them. Way back when she was I'm not even sure a teenager yet. We went to Niagara Falls and we
I was
went to this
8.
this game farm, and she got me on this ride that's like a Viking ship. All I did was close my eyes and I think scream and curse.
Yeah.
And I had a
And
student.
pray.
Yeah, I'm still a very good friends with this student. She and I are. She's kind of an odd little person, and just like I'm an odd little person as well. And we just bonded way back when she was my student, and she's a vet tech for the state of New York now. I mean, she goes around and investigates and visits and does all this stuff. She's very, very, very smart. Name's Caitlin. I'm not gonna say any more than that. But anyways, she raises goats. Maybe somebody would know that. I don't know. But anyways, uh, and she had promised we were going on a trip to uh, actually Cleveland. So we're going to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then we were going to the Cedar Point, which is a big
Amusement park.
amusement park. So I get it. She says on this, I'm going to get you on a roller coaster. I said, I don't do roller coasters. I said, my daughter barely got me on a regular ride, let alone roller coaster. She said, no, I'm going to get you on one. I avoided that girl for the whole time. And then the next year, and then later on in the year, we went to Seabreeze, which is a amusement park near Rochester, New York, and they have one there. She didn't let me out of her sight. She got me on one called the Jackrabbit, which is an old wooden roller coaster, nothing really big in it, nothing really hard to do in it, anything. And she ran away. She was so excited because she portrayed to the whole world, Mr. Marple screamed like a little girl. I didn't mind.
That
And
one's not scary.
they're the only two that's ever gotten me on anything like that. The other scary thing with vertigo, if you ever want a real thrill, go to Toronto and go to the CN Tower. Now, if you go and eat at the tower, can go to the observation deck for free, like we did. And part of it, and you're about 1,100 feet up when you do this, it has a glass floor.
Ooh,
Now you stand on that glass floor, you look down and you see the ants that are really people down there. And
that's
you think,
scary.
all that's holding me up is the glass and these little things that hold the glass together, these panes. And you see kids getting up there and jumping on it. And I'm like, no. And I just kind of tentatively put my one foot in there and go a couple panes in, and come right back out. That was a vertigo feeling too.
I bet.
Also, Karen got me on the first time I'd ever been on a elevator that rode outside of something, and this was also in Niagara Falls, and it was called the Skyline Tower. And Kathy wouldn't go up with us, but we went up to that.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, that was the same trip that we went to Seabreeze, I think. Not Seabreeze, to the Marine Land there.
Marineland,
Game,
yeah.
yeah, Game Farm.
Another cool thing that I checked out, and I hope they make more of, I don't know if you've looked at it at all, is Anne Frank's house.
Yes, I've looked a little bit of that, but it's kind of clunky.
It is clunky, and it was hard to because you have to point the thing and move your feet to where you can move, but it was hard to know what to do.
Yeah,
It wouldn't let you do just tour mode. You had to do story mode when I tried it, and you have
yes.
to find where the next quote is, and you can't do anything. And you're like standing at the bottom of these stairs, like, am I supposed to go up there? How do I get up the stairs? But it doesn't help you to know that you're supposed to go to the left and then through that other door. But
If yeah,
it was really cool to look at the walls in there, and I'd like to see a lot more of that, like different historical sites to be able to explore them at that level of detail.
I think you can. I'm going to start looking up stuff and see what they have about Scotland and everything.
Yeah,
like to do that too. And
I
I like to
saw.
see they have a thing for Tai Chi, but it's really weird and it doesn't get a great rating. So I don't want to buy it.
Mhm.
Maybe yeah, because it's cheap. It's only like $10, but I don't know. I'm hoping that they someday soon they get in a really good Tai Chi thing because I've done a little bit with it and it was fun. So there's still things that they've got to bring through to bring it up to the 20th century, but they've got the ability because of the way it's set up to uh, uh, be able to upgrade it as it goes along, which is a really good thing to be able to do. It's just
Yeah.
a really strange thing. And by the way, you really did catch me unawares of what I had no clue would go this way.
I know, because I thought it would be fun because this isn't a part of you that you podcast at all. You know, you talk about issues in Scottish culture a little bit and your love of your kilts and current events mostly, but this is like you've always been a tech person as long as I can remember, and this I don't think there's probably many boomers that are willing to try out something like virtual reality.
Maybe not, probably not, not to this extent, not so early in it still, because it's still a relatively new technology.
Yeah,
But
I know like one of the things before I left the Air Force, like I worked in a squadron that was, um, you know, we tested existing simulators for Air Force platforms, but we also contributed to design and development as well. And a lot of that is working towards virtual reality. I know that they gave a lot of innovation money to squadrons that were looking at vendors to do like maintenance training, for example, on a virtual reality system because it's a way to do different things. Like the same part in a plane doesn't necessarily break over and over and over for 10 people to keep trying to fix it or troubleshoot it. But if you can replicate that in a virtual reality system where it's just hands and visual, it's enough to sort of develop that muscle memory, you know, and get some of that training that you can't get all the time.
yeah,
So I think there's a lot that can happen, and there's so many games I'd like to see. You know, like a lot. I think probably mainly history. I have Wander, and Kim and I both tried Wander, and that's trippy. You know, to go to houses you've lived in, and I checked out all of my old schools, and it like took my breath away a few times. I'm like, oh, it looks exactly how I remember it. It feels like I'm really here, and I'm standing on the street looking at it.
yeah. I had two experiences with that early on. Well, because I haven't been on Wander for quite a while. And the first of them, I was on a boat in a river in Africa with elephants, and the elephant came right by me. You swear that that elephant was giving you shade on your boat. It was like no more than a couple feet away. And an elephant is a big animal to have inches away from you. And then
Yeah.
another one, I went to Cairo to the pyramids, and they take you like on a tour of the pyramids and everything. The only problem of it is when I looked at this house, the view that they had me 10 feet up in the air and looking down, which is kind of again something for if you have vertigo, it's not a great thing to have.
One of the things that I did on it is I went to Syria in Iraq and I checked out some areas that that we provided Overwatch for over the years. And there was one area in particular that was really trippy because I'm like, this is where they used to hide. Because they were talking about like these different buildings that were kind of burned out and they could see him sleeping next to him, and that's weird. So, I'm fairly close to what has been described to me by, aircraft that can get much closer. Like this is nuts.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that people are doing, and one of the interesting things, and this ties together the technology as well as the history, is what has gone in Ukraine. One of the most useful groups is a group who has been doing experimenting in technology using drones. And what they've done with those drones is they were able to locate for the military and actually for their own usage where the Russians were hiding things like tanks and everything. So they were able to pinpoint these areas and attack them successfully. And they had been doing they've been just experimenting like inventors with what they could do with drones, and all of a sudden they found a very very practical use for it. And
And
of
I mean,
course,
if you
yep. Go ahead.
you've had a drone, like a very small drone that can
Mhm.
fly pretty high, and not too far away, but it can fly high enough to get a decent vantage point. And you're thinking like these like kids or like just a hobbyist could actually have useful military information with their drone.
Yeah, and drones have, depending on what you want, some of them. Mine is a relatively simple one with a built-in camera, which is a very good camera for that matter. I can get it comfortably up 100 feet, and then 100, maybe a little bit more than that, and I can, where it gets kind of small for me, even though it's probably about 10 or 12 inches in each direction, or a little bit more. And it does give you quite the perspective on that. I'm going to take that out to Cooper Creek sometime, where we go do a lot of walking and take some pictures out there. I won't fly it over the water. I know it won't fall down in there, but I'm not going to take a chance on it. But I can fly it near the water because they got a big
There's so
bowl
many
shaped thing.
trees there too. You have to
Yeah,
be really careful with a lot of trees.
I would do that big bowl area that you walk by.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
That would be a good
It,
spot to do it.
it's
So
just crazy, like virtual reality. Like if you could have the fidelity of pictures for everywhere, like just
mhm.
imagine, like what you could see, like just for geography and for what it looks like at a different location. You could scope out an entire neighborhood without even moving there. Like, do I want to live here? Yeah, this looks pretty nice. I
Yeah,
want to see if there's a house for sale here.
a lot you can do with that. I think in time, and they're putting up an awful lot of satellites. I think in time we're going to be able to do with virtual reality, tie into those satellites like DirecTV type stuff,
Ooh, that'd be
and and
super
and,
cool.
and be able to see it. I mean, it's amazing. I have one on the International Space Station. Now that gives you a double whammy because you're already uh, moving in a different direction than you usually are used to because of this first person type thing. And then you throw weightlessness in it. So it actually makes you be
Oh,
weightless on it.
wait,
So
you wait, wait,
you
on
really
virtual
move fast.
reality you do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
actually,
want to
actually,
check that one out.
yeah, it's free too. One of the interesting things with it, when you go into it, into the app, you're standing there and you're in space and you're looking down at the Earth and everything. And then all of a sudden, the ISS comes beneath you, and it goes up above you, and then suddenly you just are in there, and then you have to do different things in there. I put myself upside down, had no clue where I was. I've done all kinds. That put me on my knees once too.
That's pretty
Uh,
cool.
it is cool, and I think you'd enjoy it. But again, in the beginning, it's this point where you don't know, you don't have an orientation. A couple things told me that's not something I would ever want to do, go into space.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, you can do things in space that you can't do elsewhere. I suppose you adjust to it.
But like I feel like it's different when you're actually there. They train extensively for how that feels and
Hmm.
how to deal with the physiological effects because it's not one of those things where you're like, "Oh, we'll just turn around and go home." You've got to be able to deal with being out there for however long the mission is supposed to be. I mean, I'm sure if there's an emergency or something, but that they spend a lot of money in you getting you trained so that that won't happen.
Yeah, I was reading up many, many years. In fact, my first year in education, I worked with two twin girls, Jeanette and Janet Epps, and both of them were very smart. Jeanette was a little quieter than Janet. Janet was a little wild one, so I would expected her to be something big and interesting. As it turned out, Jeanette went out and she went to Lemoyne College, and then she went to some other places. She got a couple of PhDs. She has some specific research she's done, but she's an astronaut. And
That's
one of the things
cool.
she said, she spent like 600 hours underwater experiencing what they'd have to do kind of with the weightlessness and do work underwater. So what it'd be like going on the space station. She may end up going to the space station. She may be doing something else before it's done. She hasn't actually been up in space yet, but yeah, I think she'll be there. It's quite an interesting thing to have a former student we saw as a little girl all of a sudden become an astronaut. there aren't a lot of astronauts over their history. So to go through that
That's
training and everything,
awesome.
it is.
But imagine, like, if you can do that type of training on virtual reality.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need a big facility anymore. You could, just have headsets or whatever it is to simulate that experience just as well.
Well, the space station thing, they could almost do that through with Oculus to orient them so they know in advance what it's going to be like a little bit more than they would with almost any other way to simulate it.
Yeah. It's just it blows my mind. Like there were times when I first got it and got it charged and put it on where I just stood there with my mouth wide open, just looking all around me.
Mhm.
Like I think I drained the battery the first day doing that because I just couldn't believe it.
It is certainly a different sensation when you go into that. Um, I have this one thing about it's a screen where you get it's one thing where you can see go into the 108-inch screen and see movies hugely in that respect, being in a theater, and you actually can pick what kind of theater you want to be in, and you can actually have popcorn in there and drinks in there. And it's kind of an interesting thing. If you spill the stuff, you put it up.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and then you go into
Yeah.
some of these virtual chat areas, and with all the strange creatures in there, and they are strange. Some of them. I won't even
It
say
sounds
some of the
fun
things
though.
we come across.
I
It
haven't
is,
tried any of that yet.
yeah. It's very. I think the one you might when I go in is VR chat, and then I go into the Black Cat Lounge, and that's where a lot of strange people are. And there's some really cool people, and then there's some really strange people, but most of them I think are a heck of a lot younger than I am. A
Well,
heck of
that's
a lot
fun
younger.
then because you're like this boomer and they have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea. They have no clue. I mean, you go in, there's bottles of beer on the floor, and you can pick them up and put it back on the bar, and it
Do
just
you do that? You go in there and like pick up?
yeah, it gives you practice of different skills within VR too.
You go in the
It,
bar
it,
and you clean up.
it is a riot. I'm glad you liked it. I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and everybody sounds it. Is Ellie going to get one?
No, not at this point. Like he's got his eye on some other games like Warhammer and, games that you play with like actual people and
Oh. Well, you
actual
can play with
figures.
you can actually play with actual people
True,
on these too. You can.
true. But he's
But
thinking about it. I know his favorite game has a VR option, but I'm not sure that his computer can support that.
yeah,
But
well, can eventually you can plug in between this and and computers too if you have the cord. The cord costs like $69.
I saw that too. And I was like, I'm not ready for that, I think. There's enough on there to find to do. So, and I did read about games that they're anticipating that will drop this year, and there's a lot of really cool stuff, like
Yeah,
more sports stuff and history stuff.
the more people get on it, the more they'll develop for it, just like any of the platforms.
Yeah, I find the games to be pretty reasonably priced, although I'm not looking to play, like I may play an Assassin's Creed game when it comes out later this year, but I'm not sure. Those are usually Um, I know some of them are in like colonial era and they're really well done with what's actually there. I think that'd be fun to walk around and play
Yeah,
that kind of game, but for the most part, I don't really want to play those anything super expensive.
yeah, because some
Get
of them are $49, $59 as much as the very expensive platform games.
Yeah, and a lot of them too, you spend $10 for the base game and then there's add-on packages
Hmm.
that you can get for 2.99 or 4.99. So, there's a lot out there and a lot of different things to try. And I
It
think
is,
that
and
I usually don't play for more than an hour or so because it starts to feel tight on my head,
yeah.
and I don't want to loosen it too much.
Now it's not that we're trying to sell you out there on buying an Oculus Quest 2. If you want to, and want to give us our 10% commission on it, we'll split the 10% commission on those. That's $15 a piece at one, and if a couple hundred people did it based on what we're doing, yeah, maybe
Well, we're not we're not getting paid by Facebook or
but
Meta, but
yeah, we should contact them about doing this. Hey, you see what we've done for you? We'll keep on doing it and tell our experiences. We could be an influencer.
just give me the games for free to try. That
Yeah,
would
there
be a
you
good
go.
enough to start
Yeah,
with. But no, I mean, I really liked it. Like I've looked at Oculus in the past, and I didn't like the reviews of the earlier headsets that they had. I thought
yeah,
that they weren't reviewed high enough that they were worth the price.
yeah. The Quest 2 was the first one that's really was made sense to me. The other
Yeah.
stuff looked like fun, but I wanted to wait till it was something and also something that'll work in the future too.
Yeah, and it seems like it's set up pretty well for future
I hope
development.
I still got a long future with this stuff.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to get at least one or two more upgrades.
Oh, well, before I pass into the Netherland.
Maybe you can become virtual reality. You like
Oh,
record
wouldn't you love
yourself
that?
and people can come interact with you.
Torture you from the grave.
You can hang out in the bar as like a gigantic catfish or something.
I don't know about gigantic catfish. Although I've seen things pretty much like that, that in the VR chat room. It's they got some really strange. They like some people were coming in as a mouse, and sometimes they
That
pick them
sounds
up.
fun.
Somebody was chasing him, and said that's for supper.
That's pretty
And people
funny.
they pick up little people, put them on their shoulder. Other
That
people.
sounds fun too.
I haven't tried to do that because I don't want to be accused of harassment.
Right, you have to be good.
Yep.
But that's about all that I had. I just wanted to talk to you about the Oculus and let people know that you're a super tech nerd that they wouldn't have expected from a boomer such as yourself.
We boomers have such a reputation, but there are a lot of us, and we have a lot of money to spend still. A lot
And
of
you can
fun
just sit
to
around
be.
and play virtual reality. That sounds like a perfect retirement life.
And my birth year census is finally out. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think likely I'm going to be on it because I was born in December, and it probably my mother was pregnant for me at the time when they did it. But I know what street they lived on. I'm kind of interested in seeing that, and more stuff is
I
coming up all the time.
I did find your father, and I think your mother, he's on the bottom line of a page, and I think your mother's probably on the next page. And I haven't had a chance yet to actually like put in that ED and get to the right page.
It
But
it it's fascinating, and that's something that they could eventually do too, genealogy on these things, so you could actually go in and look at the pages and things on that.
and look at
So
pictures of people and be like they've been able to animate old pictures that I've saw on Facebook like last year or the year before. Imagine like interacting with a animated ancestor.
yeah.
That would be super cool.
I'll tell you what, you opened, you can close.
All right. Well, thank you, all of his faithful listeners, for indulging me and commandeering his podcast and talking about something a little bit different and learning a little bit more about my awesome boomer dad.
Thank you, Karen. It was fun. And I bid you all a good night and good luck and my prayers and thoughts. Amen.